This episode of the Dorking Out Show is brought to you by the Globex Corporation. Celebrating the 20th anniversary of our Weather Control and Biological Warfare divisions, located in picturesque Cypress Creek. Globex. We dominate because we care.
And the letter S, because you can't spell Samsung Galaxy Note 7 without S. Now the proud sponsor of Halt and Catch Fire.
Houston, flight is go.
Mila, let's go. SPM, safety contact.
From Assignment X, Amalgamated Storytelling, and thesoniashow.com, it's Dorking Out with Sonia Mansfield and Christopher Allen Smith.
Welcome to episode 21 of Dorking Out, a podcast for people who like to dork out about stories and stories in pop culture that we love. That means movies and TV, books and podcasts, and everywhere else you find stories that interest you. This is the Arrival in the Winter Movie Preview Edition. With me today is my co-host, professional writer, and author of the forthcoming Sonia show, Sonia Mansfield.
Hey there.
Hello.
With me today is my co-host, Emmy Award-winning filmmaker and nerd author Christopher Allen Smith. In this week's episode, we share our top picks for the rest of the year in our winter movie preview. Then we review the alien invasion movie Arrival, which just opened in theaters on Friday, not to be confused with 1996's The Arrival starring Charlie Sheen. Very different movies.
Wasn't the 96 Arrival also about aliens?
Yes.
All right, sorry, keep going.
But
Continue.
still different.
That's
still
true.
different. And then you asked, and we answer. We're answering listeners' questions. And in our favorite headlines of the week, we discuss the latest Mirror Universe episodes of CNN Headline News where Donald Trump won the 2016 presidential election.
Those are wild episodes.
Word.
I'm sorry. All that and more when we come back? I'm sorry. Did I interrupt you?
Nope, we're good.
Did I derail it?
You derailed me a little bit.
Professionalism.
This segment of Dorking Out is brought to you by Vengeful. Is your brother bringing his awful girlfriend to Thanksgiving? She was so rude last year, talking about how horrible your pumpkin pie was. Have you thought about spitting in her food or her wine when she wasn't looking? If so, then you need Vengeful. Topic 1. It's time for our winter movie preview. This is usually when Hollywood brings out their best movies in the hopes of winning an Oscar. We've watched all the trailers we could stand, and we've picked our 3 top movies plus Rogue One to share with you. These are all movies that are coming out after Thanksgiving up until the end of the year, and obviously Star Wars Rogue One is on both of our lists.
That's right. And also, obviously, I might have broken a couple rules, and some of the movies that I'm talking about are coming out before Thanksgiving. I'm sorry. I tried to follow the rules.
But you're not sorry, because you
I
didn't
am
follow
sorry.
the rules of
I
the
am sorry.
fall movie preview either.
That's right. So what I did for the fall one was I picked stuff from winter, and what I did from the winter one, apparently, is pick a movie from fall.
You are useless. You are useless to me.
Pretty close. Sonia, what is your first pick?
Besides Rogue One?
Besides Rogue One. We'll talk about that later.
So, probably the movie I'm most excited to see, other than Rogue One, is La La Land. Have you seen you watched the trailers for this one?
I have. And it looks great.
Super love musicals.
Yeah.
I love musicals. So I'm really excited to see. Like, I'm excited that it's set in like contemporary times, and it's got Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling. I think the previews make it look just like kind of magical.
Yeah.
And it's been getting rave reviews and winning awards at all the film festivals. So I'm really optimistic. I'm super excited to see it.
You know, it's funny. It's when I see the previews, it kind of reminds me, might seem a little weird. The vibe that it hits is Woody Allen's Manhattan, where it takes music and just pretty images of a city and puts them together in such a way that it looks like it's this magical, otherworldly whatever. Now, while Manhattan feels very strange to watch today,
right?
This makes L.A. look like just like a dream factory. It makes it just look amazing and sweet and so romantic. that I'm very interested in seeing this
Yeah. Did you see Woody Allen's musical? Everyone Says I Love You.
movie. I think I did. Maybe I didn't.
It was okay.
That's the thing is a lot of,
Not to derail the conversation to start talking about a different movie, but
to talk about Woody Allen
when you were talking
again.
about Woody Allen, I thought that's where you were going.
No, because there's the oh my God, the Rhapsody in Blue that he uses when he shows New York at the beginning and I think at the end of Manhattan, and it's just one of the greatest sequences in movies. Just so the city paired with that music, paired with the jazz, paired with the majesty of that piece is just great stuff. Anyway,
Well, I think this one looks really great. I'm excited to see it.
I am too. And who's the director on that again?
You know what? I actually forget his name, but I believe it's the same person who directed Whiplash.
That's right. That's why I'm looking forward to it. That's another reason I'm looking forward to it. It looks completely different from Whiplash, but that guy seems to have a strong handle on his vision, and
it does look completely different. Like Whiplash does not look sweet or romantic. Was not sweet or romantic, I should say.
Right.
And this one looks like it is. What's your number one pick?
My number one pick is Live by Night, Ben Affleck's new directorial.
That is the most boring movie name ever.
Maybe it is. It's from
Live by Night.
Blame Dennis Lehane and his novel of Prohibition-era gangsterdom and crime. And I think after watching The Town and watching Argo, I think I could watch Ben Affleck do either crime movies or kind of drama/suspense movies for the rest of my life. He's just got such a great handle on him.
Yeah.
He just hits it just so right. And this seems to be kind of right up his alley. It stars Ben Affleck, Zoe Saldana, Elle Fanning, and a bunch of other people. But I'm just really excited that he's been working on this movie for a while now. And there's something about, I don't know what it is. When Dennis Lehane, when his Boston crime stories get put on screen, they're usually just so good that I am really looking forward to this.
Was The Town his as well?
I don't think so. I think The Town was an original story, but why don't you start talking about your next one while I research to find out if The Town was his?
Okay. So one of my other picks is a movie called Miss Sloane, which I've seen the preview for now a few times in the theater, and it stars Jessica Chastain as a powerful DC lobbyist who kind of puts her career on the line to try to pass an amendment enforcing stricter gun control laws. I love political thrillers, and I really like Jessica Chastain, so this kind of speaks to me. It seems kind of like an old-fashioned political thriller, like a movie made for adults,
right? Which
I don't feel like we get a lot of those kinds of movies anymore.
That's right.
It's not an action movie. It's not a comic book movie. Like, it's a political thriller. And I just think it looks really, really good. It's got Sam Waterston in it and a whole bunch of other people. Actually, I can't remember off the top of my head. But I think it looks really good. And I wouldn't object to stricter gun control laws. So I'm into it.
That's right. So it's a fantasy film. What you're saying. It's not based on a comic book. Nevertheless,
it's still clearly science fiction.
I'm sorry, listeners that are for gun control. I'm sorry, listeners that are against gun control. Just let us have one. Let us up off the mat.
Did you watch the preview for this one? I think it looks really good.
I did.
I really like her. I like Jessica Chastain a lot. So
yeah. I did, but I'll admit, and we're going to talk about this probably a little bit in our favorite headlines section, is I saw the preview at a time when the political race was nuts.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I don't need to see, I'll be honest with you. If the second season of House of Cards had come out in September, I would not have seen one episode.
I still haven't seen one episode.
Exactly. It would have been like That's enough. I'm full up. Thanks, guys. You know, I don't want to get back from, a, fantasy cowboy camp in Arizona and then go watch The Unforgiven. It's just like, it's too much of something.
No, you watch City Slickers. Everyone knows that.
That's right. Okay. All right. My next choice, because you haven't asked, is
I don't care. It's because I don't care.
That's right. This one is going to be great. This one, I'm betting some amount of money that this is going to be the big one for Oscars next year. It is Daniel Washington's. No, it is Denzel Washington's, I think, directorial debut, starring him, Viola Davis, and a cast of a lot of other good African-American actors in an adaptation of August Wilson's play Fences.
Yeah, way to go out on a limb, Smith, and say it might be nominated for Oscars.
Why? Why, Sonia?
Because it's clearly an Oscar bait movie.
That's right, because African-Americans don't have anything better to do than write plays to get Oscars. It's not like they have any stories to tell.
That's not what I said.
But that is the outrageous inference that I have decided to cast upon your opinion, Sonia.
This election is tearing us apart.
That's right. Not just us. All right. No. So this is the story of an African-American father as he struggles with race relations in the United States while trying to raise his family in the 1950s and come to terms with the events of his life.
And it's a musical.
It is. They have a preview of it that we're going to have a link in the show notes, and it is just watching Denzel Washington as a kind of a middle-aged to older man talk to his son and kind of turn on the full Denzel Washington blast on his son who just wants him to like him. It's just so, it's heartbreaking, but it's also very interesting. Also, there's an interesting video that we'll try to put in the show notes where there was a version of this same scene from Fences done by James Earl Jones, and then the video is edited together. There's a video of that, and then a video of Denzel Washington's onstage performance back to back. And it's the same scene played in completely different ways, and one gets a lot of laughs, and one seems like Darth Vader is mad at you the whole time, and it is terrifying, but also very interesting from a directing and a script interpretation point of view. But I'm saying, yes, Fences is something that we should all look forward to, Sonia. And you know what? I am also going to go out on another limb.
I can't wait.
We have Mel Gibson as here. Yeah, I'm going to put Mel Gibson and Denzel Washington in the same boat. Watch this. So we got Kevin Costner.
I'm going to start sawing off your limb.
Kevin Costner does his directorial debut, Dances with Wolves, wins an Oscar. Okay. Mel Gibson's second directorial effort, Braveheart, wins him an Oscar. While Ben Affleck did not get an Oscar for directing Argo, he did get one for producing it. I'm going to say Denzel Washington is going to be one of the frontrunners to get an Oscar in next year's Academy Awards. You watch this.
That's a pretty bold statement for a movie you haven't seen yet.
It is, but I've seen the preview, so I feel
like I've seen the movie.
So I feel like I'm completely justified in making all of these assumptions and assertions.
Now, keep in mind that Smith also thought that Phantom Menace would probably win Best Picture after seeing that preview. So.
I did not say that. I did not believe that. But as we're going to hear in our upcoming segment about listener questions, I went out on a limb and asserted that Ang Lee's The Hulk was going to change film editing for all time. So I will go very far out on some limbs. Oh, and by the way, I am right. It's going to happen. You'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
So what's your next one?
So my final pick is Office Christmas Party. I think this movie looks so funny. The previews make me laugh really hard. Great cast. It's got T.J. Miller, Jennifer Aniston, Kate McKinnon, Courtney B. Vance, and Jason Bateman. My childhood crush, Jason Bateman. It looks like it's, and it's about like an office party, basically, an office Christmas party that gets out of control. And it kind of reminds me of the movies that Will Ferrell and Adam Sandler used to make when they still made movies that were funny.
Oh, snap. I didn't even think about it like that. But yeah, almost like old school kind of type
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
No
and I
kidding.
think it looks really funny. And I'm just really into Kate McKinnon. I think she's amazing, and kind of anything with her in it now, I'm like, yes, I will watch that.
Yeah, you know what? She is definitely, she's at that level where if you like comedy, you better pay attention to whatever she's doing.
Yeah.
I think she was in every sketch last night. We're recording this the day after Dave Chappelle was on Saturday Night Live, and I think she was in literally every single sketch.
That would not surprise me. She's like that. It was like that with Amy Poehler. I felt like Amy Poehler was in every sketch for a while too.
That's right.
Because she's just so good. I'm really excited. Like, I know apparently some people decide they're really excited to see Bad Santa 2. I will not be seeing Bad Santa 2. I think Office Christmas Party is going to be the comedy for the holiday season.
Cool. Well, we will see. My second to last pick, kind of last pick, but second to last pick, I think is like a Neo John Hughes movie. I had no idea this movie was coming out. I am crazy excited for it, though, even though I am far north of 17.
Far
north. It's a comedy drama, and it has a very 16 Candles Breakfast Club vibe. It stars Haley Stansfield, who was in one of my favorite movies of the last decade, the Coen Brothers' True Grit.
Yeah.
She gave a performance that is just insane. I mean, actors at the top of their game can't even get within 100 miles of the performance she gave when she was like 14 or something. It was
I thought you were
nuts.
talking about Pitch Perfect 2.
No.
She's in Pitch Perfect 2. Just saying.
All right, she might be, but okay,
She is, because I saw it.
I will trust you because I will never know. So she gets, the description is, high school life gets even more unbearable for Nadine when her best friend, Krista, starts dating her older brother. Boom. Very simple, sweet setup. Could go in a million different directions. The preview, it co-stars Woody Harrelson and a lot of people. And the preview, and this rarely happens with me anymore, the preview just came out of nowhere. I hadn't heard of it, no idea, saw the preview, and it's just, I have to see that movie.
The preview gets a lot of laughs in the theater.
It does. Oh, it's really funny, though. It's really just, you can see her, capturing that teenager angst, hyper self-conscious about everything, just so awkward, and she just plays it really well, and, the positions that she gets put in, at least in the preview, is just fantastic and hilarious. So, Edge of 17. Go check it out. Which brings us to, I guess, you know what? I'm going to skip a little last one. I was going to talk a little bit about Monster Calls with Sigourney Weaver and Liam Neeson, but I was watching the preview before we got started today, and I realized that it looks nearly identical to The Big Friendly Giant, which came out in July and put me to sleep. So I'm here to say, even though A Monster Call looks pretty good, we're not going to talk about it, except for what I just said about it when I was talking.
All right.
So, what is our last pick? Sonia Mansfield?
I assume our last pick is Rogue One.
That's right.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that one's one that we're most excited about.
It is. You see, the thing is, I'm going to talk past you a little bit right to our audience right now, Sonia. On this show, we try hard to search far and wide for hidden gems that you might not have heard of. You might not have seen any of the previews. You might not have seen any of the commercials. They might not even have had commercials. But sometimes little tiny movies that look good need to be championed. So Sonia,
you are a champion of the smaller film.
That's right. So Sonia and I are here to tell you about a small film called Star Wars Rogue One.
I'm really excited for Rogue One.
Uh,
How excited are you for Rogue One?
I am moderately excited. And I think, one, because I've heard a lot of, we've all heard the stories of maybe things are not going well with the script. They supposedly had a bunch of reshoots, et cetera, et cetera. So there's that. But then, having watched Doctor Strange, I'm thinking, my ideal movie would be The Godfather with aliens, where it's a deep story with a lot of interesting things to examine about the human condition, whatever. But, instead of just a gunfight, it's got spaceships and lightsabers and whatever. So, what I'm going for. And so living through these last couple of years where we've had new Star Wars movies, we've had, comic book movies all over the place, and they're getting better and better. For a long time, it seemed like, wow, this is the golden age of being a nerd, watching movies. But
It really is, though.
But I'm wondering if I'm either getting a little tired of it, or if the desperation or the thought behind Disney and Marvel cranking these movies out, not killing off characters, not having anything too threatening happen, because we need the characters for the movie after this one and then the Avengers 4 movies down the road, if it's kind of stunting the creativity and the freedom that they have to do more bold things. We talked a little bit about this in our review of Doctor Strange with Kirk last week. And I'm wondering, given that we pretty much know the beginning of this movie from the previews, given that we pretty much know the end of Rogue One from what happens at the beginning of episode 4.
Right.
I'm wondering, it's kind of like just the fact that they've set a movie at that point and shown one preview either spoils too much, or if we're really going to be able to get a lot out of it. If it's not just going to be another fun roller coaster that you kind of forget about.
Right.
6 months,
yeah, we know they succeed in their mission, but we don't know, do they make it?
Yeah.
Do they?
Do they make it? But then there's also this other thing of, Mads Mikkelsen, who's, goes from Rogue One. I wonder how much, like, the Disney accounting office must be sending him check after check after check, and he hasn't gotten paid by anyone else, because he goes from being in Doctor Strange over to being in Star Wars. Anyway, so he plays either not necessarily the designer of the Death Star, but kind of one of the lead architects.
Right.
And it would be interesting if they kind of examined, what's it like building weapons for the Nazis. If a good person is stuck in this awful situation, what are they going to do? How far are they going to go? How many compromises are they going to make to keep their family alive, while at the same time they're building this weapon that can destroy the family of millions? I don't know if Rogue One's going to walk down any of those paths. And I think one of the strengths of these Star Wars story standalone movies would be to kind of do some interesting exploration of the Star Wars universe that's maybe can handle a little bit more adult themes and adult situations.
Right.
But
there's a million stories to be told in the San Francisco universe, Star Wars universe.
That's right.
Is what I'd say. Not San Francisco.
Hey, how much are you looking forward to Star Wars?
I'm really excited. I'm more optimistic about it than you, I think. I think it looks really, really good. I'm excited.
This segment of the Dorking Out Show is brought to you by Lust. Is your brother bringing his awful girlfriend to Thanksgiving again this year? Has there always been a weird spark between you and her when your dopey brother wasn't looking? Maybe your eyes met across the Thanksgiving table? Maybe she just wants to break up with him and doesn't have the maturity to do it like an adult. Maybe she just wants to blow up her whole relationship somehow. Maybe that somehow is you. Then you need Lust. That brings us to topic 2, our review of The Arrival, a new movie starring Amy Adams that, if you're not paying too much attention, could look an awful lot like a remake of Independence Day, where instead of the giant black spaceships hovering over cities, giant black spaceships hover over fields, and instead of going right to left, they go up and down. But
Yes.
Other than stealing a lot of the iconography from Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin's 1996 classic movie, Sonia, what did you think of Amy Adams' The Arrival?
I love so many things about this movie. I don't know where to start. I love that it's a really personal story told in the context of a big like alien invasion story.
Right.
It's about love and loss, and similar to Gravity, starring Sandra Bullock. Kind of reminded me of that.
Mm-hmm.
I love how thoughtful it is. I love how smart it is. I love that the heroes are a linguistics professor and a mathematician. That it's not about like fighting these aliens and there's no like national monuments blowing up.
Or is there? Let's not spoil it too much.
I love that it's not just about the United States, but the entire world. I think that we see a lot of movies with these kind of alien invasion things, and it's just about like what the Americans are doing. I love how smart Amy Adams' character is. I always love Amy Adams.
Yeah.
I think this movie would have come across really cold and maybe too intellectual, but I think she brings a lot of heart to the movie with her performance.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of warmth. I think Jeremy Renner is the most likable he's ever been in this movie. And I love the questions it asks. I'm not going to spoil what the questions are. And I love Amy Adams' character's answers. And I really love the score too. It's not very often I talk about the score in a movie, but I thought the use of music was really great. And I super loved it.
So we talked a little bit on Friday. We both saw it on Thursday night. We talked on Friday. What has the number score that you gave it on that day changed? What number score would you give this?
I would give it like an 8.5.
8.5. Oh, look at that.
I really, you know what? And this is what we talked about when we talked about this before. Like a lot of people, I was really upset last week.
Really?
You know?
Why?
What happened? And I went into this movie and it just completely sucked me in. And I was just with it for 2 hours. And in the movie, I love that all the different countries are divided, like dealing with these aliens, and they get scared and they kind of all close each other out. Like
Right.
they put up walls, if you will. And I don't want to spoil what happens next, but it seems very timely to everything that's happening right now.
Right.
Like,
right.
I love the humanity and the optimism of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a really good movie. I don't think I sparked to it as much as you did, even though I did like it. One of our friends of the show, Tony Hicks, said that this is definitely a movie that a lot of people need to see at our time. He was going to be on the show tonight, but he decided not to, so I'm going to give him
He's sick.
a tiny ration of BS just because he's not here to defend himself. So I'm just
Yeah, screw that guy.
That's right. And he said that this is definitely a big, important, meaningful movie with it is a grown-up, adult, mature science fiction movie talking about real themes, and I liked it, but I don't think I'm loving it. The reason I mentioned Tony is I don't think I'm loving it like he did, and I don't think I'm loving it like it seems as though you are. But I'm not going to say that it's because there's something in the movie that I found that it's flawed or something. I think it's just, it is a very chilly movie. And I hear what you're saying when it comes to Amy Adams and her performance. She is really good, and she's really there.
Yeah. I feel without her,
Yeah.
the movie would be keeping you at arm's length.
Definitely.
And I think she's our way in.
Yeah. And for me, it was like, oh, wow, I didn't know Christopher Nolan made a movie this year, but he did. And apparently he's doing it under the guise of director Denis Villeneuve, or hold on for a moment.
Yeah, that's right.
Who directed Sicario and Prisoners and Enemy. And this is just a really kind of cold movie.
He directed Enemy? That's the one with Jake Gyllenhaal?
I think it is, which I never saw. I didn't
see it either, but I heard a lot about it.
Yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal, yes. Anyway, the reason that I mention this movie, and actually I'm going to go and see Enemy now. Oh, that's right. Yes, I'm sorry. This is also the guy who's directing the new Blade Runner movie. How could I have let that slip through? Anyway, the weekend before I saw The Arrival, I saw Dances with Wolves. My son Harrison and I were home alone, and his brother was sleeping over somewhere. Laura was somewhere. So we said, you know what? We're going to watch a movie. What movie we want to watch? We pulled out Dances with Wolves because I remember liking it so much back then. And I think I might have said this before. I might have even said this last week. Holy cow, that movie holds up. But that movie is also about two different cultures that can't talk to each other, trying to figure out a common language and then discuss a difficult problem. But in that movie, it's about a white soldier in the, meeting with Plains Indians back in the 1860s. So he's got a message of, the white man's coming and he's going to wreck everything you love, and it's horrible. So it's, on many levels, it's a very depressing movie. The end of, the free Native Americans, the closing of the West, the, white settlers going over and slaughtering all the buffalo. But within all of that horror, it finds real human moments. Like when they're kind of trying to communicate with each other and they meet each other as humans, and there's a huge amount of humor that comes out of that. I was kind of surprised by my son's reaction. We're like 2/3 of the way through the movie, and he says, this is almost like a comedy. And when I watch all the little things that Kevin Costner put in and the other actors put in to kind of make their characters real human beings and whatever, it's just, you can tell a hard, cold, almost bitter movie with a lot of heart, a lot of hope, and an awful lot of warmth and comedy that doesn't wreck and kind of just feel like shoehorned in jokes. It can kind of bubble up. And I wish The Arrival had done something like that, where they're, in this really profound, difficult situation, and we get a lot of shots of, like behind the heads people, and you like see their ears, they're thinking very intently, or they're pondering something, or they're scared, or and the background is all blurred out, and it's very almost abstract kind of filmmaking in certain segments. And after a while, it just got to be too much. I almost hoped that like there's a scene in Dances with Wolves where Kevin Costner is taking a bath, and then he thinks some Native Americans are kind of stealing his horses or something. So he runs up and he's waving his arms and he's yelling at them and he's running after them. And then I think he like trips or something, and what the Native Americans see is this naked white man yelling at him and running after him.
Right.
So it's this very kind of weirdly funny scene, but meaningful scene at the same time. And there was and it all, it all comes from a natural, wow, guy's got to take a bath. And, if they show up when he's taking a bath, he's like, I guess he's going to be naked. So it's kind of like funny. So the humor kind of bubbles out of that situation, I think I said before. But here, it's just, everything is so cold. And the beginning of this movie is like the first 15 minutes of Up.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people will know what I'm talking about. It's like, oh God, that makes me cry just thinking about it.
Right.
This is very similar to that, and for me, it never wavered from that point. And I think, and maybe, you know what? I think I'm falling into the trap that I warn other people against when it comes to movies. I'm kind of imagining the movie I would have wanted to see, rather than describing the movie that Dennis
I'm
you
super
made.
guilty of doing this sort of thing too.
I guess, you know,
I like the movie just the way it is.
Yeah. I guess that's the thing, is if it had had just one or two human, understandable, relatable, humorous points, not even jokes or whatever, or laughs, just a little bit of humor, I would have liked it twice as much.
Provides some of that.
Some, maybe, yeah, maybe. You could be right.
What I think is so cool is how smart it is about explaining what it is she's doing, because it's really complicated.
Yes,
these aliens are here and they don't. It's not like they speak English, like they don't, you know. So she's trying to speak to them like and interpret their language, and I just thought it was so interesting how they explain it and break it down. Right. You know, so that it's like in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, like by the time the aliens show up, and spoilers for Close Encounters, you know, and they've already learned how to kind of communicate with them. Right. In this movie, we get to see how they figure it out, and I thought it was really interesting. Right. And you know, and there's a lot of interesting and smart kind of bureaucratic and political examinations of, you know, you got these, you know, the Pentagon and the Army and everything kind of breathing down her neck. Well, why don't you just do this? Why don't you just do that? Why do you have to do all this? I don't understand. Why do you have to teach them kindergarten, you know, kindergarten vocabulary? And then she just, in a smart way, gets, you know, a little frustrated and pushes back and just explains it to them in 5 lines. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, all right, fine. Do your thing, smart lady. We'll just be over here sulking. It did remind me a lot of Gravity, which I think was that 2013. Yeah. With Sandra Bullock. And I did not see Interstellar. Did you see Interstellar? I did see Interstellar. Which I could. Yeah, and I liked it. For me, looking as someone who hasn't seen it, I was like, I'm wondering if they were similar. They're similar in tone. There is a kind of, and I come from a place of deep love for Christopher Nolan, but my God, that guy's probably had 10, maybe 5 humorous moments scattered throughout his entire filmography. I mean, that guy is a serious dude. Right. And I think, I don't know. Now that I'm talking it through, I'm wondering if there's something going on with modern, quote unquote, serious filmmakers that they got to feel like things are not too funny. We can't have jokes. We can't have humorous moments. We have to show that we're serious with a capital S. But I don't know. I don't know. So, I mean, if they include a couple of jokes, then they could, maybe they could win a Golden Globe for Best Comedy. They could, see? That's right. You put a couple jokes in, boom. Everybody loves you twice as much. That's right. Matt Damon's Mark Watney has taught us all. And then he went off to space in Interstellar, and everybody knows that he went crazy and tried to kill Matthew McConaughey. Spoilers for a movie that came out 4 years ago. Sorry. What do you rate this movie? I'm saying 8.5. I rate it a 7. Might be a 7.5. Might be a 6.5. I'm not sure. I need to see it again and kind of focus on it more. Yeah. I did like the fact, and I'm going to throw this all out there for you Star Trek fans, there's a concept in this movie that people who love Star Trek The Next Generation might grab onto earlier than other viewers, and it's a pretty sweet find. As if you're going to, like I tell everybody who wants to tell stories, if you're going to steal from the best. And it looks like they might have done that, and it was, it's fantastic. So, yes, The Arrival, go see it. It's a good movie. I wish I could have enjoyed it more, but my cold, cold heart won't allow it.
That brings us to topic 3, a new segment that some might say is just thoughtless filler because we didn't feel like putting together a third segment. But what we would say...
Those people would be wrong.
Those people have got a lot of nerve. Why don't you shut your mouth and just sit back and watch the greatness happen, even though you might be right. Point is, we are going to take listener questions, and this segment was suggested by a listener, a dear listener, Marcus Rinaldi, known as Hydra 1970 on Twitter. He asked us a couple questions, and we decided to spread it all out into a listener question segment. Sonia Mansfield, would you like to take Marcus Rinaldi's first question?
Sure. His first question, what was a movie you were looking forward to, was panned by critics, but you dug? And your movie is?
My movie is, and I'm going to die on this hill, I guess, because I'm going to defend it to the end. My movie is Ang Lee's Hulk. I gave this a 10 out of 10, I think, when it came out.
That's ridiculous.
I compared it
You're saying it's a perfect movie.
Well, here's what I did. Is I compared it to the great cinema-changing moments of cinema. Like, editing and close-ups came in with Birth of a Nation, and then sound came in, and then color came in, and then I went all out in my praise of Ang Lee's Hulk. And I still say that if you gave me $100 million, I would go out and make a movie to prove my point. Because what Ang Lee did, the movie itself is, it's the telling of the Incredible Hulk story of, David or Bruce Banner, a scientist who gets blasted with gamma rays and becomes a Hulk.
This is the one with Eric Bana, right?
This is the one with Eric Bana. This is the one with the Hulk poodles. This is the one that a lot of comic book fans are not really happy with, and a lot of critics were not really happy with. So I kind of went out way on a limb with this. But the thing that was amazing to me, and why I'll still defend it, and I think we're seeing some of this starting to crop up in modern films, is, for pretty much as long as movies have been going, there's been a certain kind of rhythm and a certain technique with editing. You see a shot, then that shot gets cut, you put in another shot, you see that shot, and by the accumulation of all these shots, you project a certain kind of image or feeling or sensation with the audience. But it's really just, like a regular Hollywood movie is like a succession at this point of like 2,000 shots, all strung together, one after the other, that are discrete and in and of themselves, but when you watch them all together, they communicate something. But what Ang Lee did was he would have not really cuts, or in a lot of areas, he wouldn't really have cuts. What he would do is, he would have a camera panning from one location to another location, and in location A, there would be like the curve of a leaf or something. And in location B, there would be some other curve that it kind of meshed up together. So what it would look like is Eric Bana would be, on the patio of his house, walking across the patio, and the camera would pan over, and we would see, some other character 3,000 miles away picking up that element of the story and kind of going through it, and then it would go back and forth and up and down. And I remember there was one shot where there were a bunch of helicopters going to see the Hulk, going after the Hulk, and the way that their blades moved up and down in the frame panned, kind of act as wipes from one shot to another shot to another shot. So what this all adds up to is not so much cut, but this kind of like gigantic collage, this fever dream of a movie where you're just kind of in this area, then you're in the past, then you're in the present, then you're at this other location, and it moves like a completely different kind of movie. I really think what I suspect at this point, because the reputation Ang Lee's Hulk has gotten since then, it's kind of gotten panned by critics and pounded on. What I think is going to happen is 10 or 15 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, I don't know, when movies have moved on to a different era, or maybe holograms or whatever, people are going to look back at this movie and say, holy cow, look at what was just sitting right here. Because it didn't do well at the box office, because it didn't do well with critics, because it didn't do well with fans, which is pretty much everybody, didn't do well with anybody. It got
except you.
Yeah, exactly. It got thrown to the side, but people are going to find it someday, and it still looks like, holy cow, I can't believe they're doing what they're doing. It's just incredible. So, Ang Lee's Hulk. I will still defend that movie till the end.
So I have 2 picks. Movies that I think are really, really funny, and critics really hated them.
Mm-hmm.
They are both Adam Sandler movies. I think Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore are so funny. So funny. And they were not well received.
No, they were not.
He is, he's obnoxious. Why is he yelling? What's with the funny voices? Blah, blah, blah. I think that they are really weird movies and really funny.
Right.
And I will still watch them, like, whenever I see that they're on. I was like, oh, cool, Billy Madison's on.
Billy Madison, that's the one where he has to finish elementary school?
Yeah, he goes back to school and spends like a week in each grade. And
that's so dumb.
It is so dumb, but it's so funny.
It is.
It's this really weird movie. It's just weird. Like, there's just these weird little moments in the movie where, like, Chris Farley is a bus driver that gets really angry, and there's a whole running joke about this family called the O'Doyles that harass him, and, like, no matter what grade he's in, and there's like a musical number, and it's just a very strange movie, but it's so funny. And Happy Gilmore is the one where he is a hockey player who becomes a golf star.
Right.
And I think it's so funny, and I still, like, I quote that movie.
Those are two good movies. That there is a thing about comedies they're kind of like horror movies in a way, where critics like to kick them around sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, if it's a lowbrow comedy that has aspirations to do nothing but make you laugh, critics kind of seem to get irritated by that.
Right. Well,
And
they go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to say, in these 2 movies, if you look at them, they're really funny movies.
Well, what's funny is they gave them these really poor reviews. They were really poorly received.
Uh-huh.
But, like, now, like, if you go back and start looking at, like, Adam Sandler movies, well, now they're pleasant surprises compared to Grown Ups 2 or, something, or Little Nicky.
Yeah. Like
things like that. So then they're like, oh, I wish he'd make another Billy Madison.
Right. Well, I'm wondering what has gone on with him. Like, because he did make Happy Gil. He seemed to be the kind of star that kind of understood what he did.
Right.
And just stuck to it. And, Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison are really, God, wow. Yeah. Billy Madison got a 46.
He made The Wedding Singer, which is a terrific movie.
Right.
And was well received.
Right.
But now it's almost like he's just phoning it in. Now it's like, I want to take a cool trip to Hawaii. How can I get a film studio to pay for it? Or something.
I think that's one of the reasons that I bash on him so much, and he has kind of become a punchline. And, a lot of times I'm just kind of joking when I do it, but he's one of those, he's not like Rob Schneider, where the guy never had any talent and he never made me laugh.
Right.
Adam Sandler with Happy Gilmore and Billy
You make
Madison,
fun of it because he had potential.
Yeah. He had potential, but then, it's like, okay, then he does Punch Drunk Love, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Then he does, he kind of plays a version of himself in Judd Apatow's Funny People. and he's really good. And what's weird is it looks as though the character that he played in Funny People and made fun of himself, and they had a bunch of fake movies in that movie to kind of make fun of a comedian phoning it in. Since that movie, he's only phoned it in. It's
Right.
almost like this is my last shot at respect. I'm out. Thanks, Judd, for having me in your movie. I'll see you later. And it's just been nothing but horror,
Yeah.
So, yeah, Adam Sandler, we like to kick him around, but there's a couple movies at the beginning of his career. There's a couple flashes that hint
You
at
know
something
what?
so much better.
We can kick him around all we want, and, I don't think he cares. He goes to sleep on his giant pile of money every night. So
Right. Which itself rests on a giant vault of money.
Right.
Which is built on a foundation of gold. So he's fine. Everybody, in case you were worried,
Yeah, he's
Adam
fine.
Sandler's fine.
We got a second question from Marcus too, where he asked if the two of us had seen the Star Wars holiday special when it first aired.
So I think what I'm going to do here, Sonia, is I'm going to tear a little page from Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark,
Okay.
where he's running around looking for Marion, and then that guy comes up with a sword and starts whipping it around, and you expect this big, huge whatever, foo-for-all, and Indy just pulls out his gun, pow! End of fight. Yes, Marcus, I did see it. I don't really remember it. I haven't seen it since, and I don't care to even think about it. I'm sorry.
I'm pretty sure I watched it when it first aired. I've only seen clips of it, since then. And I would certainly watch it again, though.
I've seen a couple clips of it, and I've seen enough to communicate I am not watching this. I will never watch this. But here's the thing, is there's a thing...
You're breaking your rule. You just said that you were going to just
That's
say
right.
Yes.
That's right. I'll just say this as a kind of way to appease Marcus and thank him for his questions and for this idea and for being such a great listener, is there's something that a lot of film goers do that I don't do. They seem to, like my son does this, and I think this is kind of a young man's film game, is you watch things that you know you're not going to like. Like my son keeps trying to get me to watch The Room, and for my generation, it was like Plan 9 from Outer Space, or it's where you're watching a movie that's awful. And there's
Right.
kind of a let's watch it. Let's watch this and laugh at it because it's so dumb kind of thing.
I don't have time for ironic watching.
Exactly, and I can't do it anymore. And
Right.
I'm sure I've heard some things about it, and I think I saw like a YouTube documentary on it a little while ago, and it just sounded bizarre. No, some podcast anyway, where they talked about it, and it was just they were describing it, and I remember vaguely. Oh yeah, I saw that. Oh yeah, and it just sounded so weird that I was just like, you know what, I'm not doing this. I can't pay attention to this. So yeah, we've seen it. Didn't leave that much of a mark. Moving on.
Okay, next question. Do you want to read it?
Next question is
Or you want me to read it?
No,
No, you read it.
Yeah, okay. Next question is from a friend and somebody who's going to be on the show here in a couple weeks. Raymond, and this is how my friend Scott is going to find out that I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I'm sorry, Scott. If you're listening, I just can't do it. This is from Raymond Scott Daigle, not Dingle, from Facebook. Probably not Dingle. Sweet Jesus, I'm sorry, Scott. I've mangled your last name, and Sonia and I have been talking for 10 minutes before we started recording this segment. How do you say this name?
I think it's Daigle.
She thinks it's Daigle. See, exactly. We got 3 different pronunciations. I got 2 pronunciations I don't want to say on the air, so we're just going to move on. Thank you for your question, which is, what is the state of American cinema heading into 2017? Is it all corporate, computer-generated superhero 3D spectacle and children's animated films? Or is there a place for art anymore? Your thoughts, Sonia Mansfield?
The answer is yes.
Okay, would you care to expand on your answer there?
I do
Mansfield?
think that it's not going to be all corporate computer-generated superhero 3D spectacle and children's animated films. It feels that way.
But only
but-
because it will be.
No, I really don't think that. I think that kind of like on TV, how we just have so many options now for watching TV. I think that's true of movies too. And I think you have to look beyond a chain multiplex theater maybe to find movies that are different. That's all. It's like, or direct to Netflix movies, or indie horror movies that go, straight to video on demand, VOD. And that's how you see something that isn't just, the next Marvel movie or the next DreamWorks animated movie based on a toy. So I think there is a place for art. It's just, maybe it's not playing at the Cinemark movie theater 10.
That's right. There is a place for art. It's called television.
That's not what I was saying.
No, that's not what I was saying. Actually, it's funny. Scott, I'm going to direct you back to, as Sonia's been talking, you might have thought that because she wasn't being interrupted, I might have fallen dead. But I was actually looking back at our episodes. We did discuss this kind of a lot in Dorking Out episode 7, The Movies Are Committing Suicide Squad Edition. But I will recap my thoughts there, which I do think modern American movies are moving in a direction of bigger movies, comic book movies, movies made on more fantastical, baked in properties like, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, all that kind of stuff. I do think that movies are moving more and more in that direction. And movies that might have been more art house movies are moving onto television and Netflix, and they're becoming 10-episode seasons of different shows. Like, I'll point to and I'll defend the artistic integrity of, either shows like Breaking Bad or Mad Men or, The People versus O.J. Simpson or the 2 seasons of Fargo. I mean, those, 20 years ago, those all would have been movies. I think Matt Weiner even wrote Mad Men originally as a movie, if I remember correctly. Anyway, and now they're living better on television. And actually, an example that comes up with me this weekend is on the 4th, Netflix released The Crown, which is the story of Queen Elizabeth becoming Queen of England. And I definitely think 25 years ago, this would have been a Miramax movie that came out in November and would have, had an Oscar run. But it's a 10-episode show about, the British, the House of Windsor, the British royal family, the kind of the scope of the 20th century, and how her living as this very strange, archaic figurehead of another time that's still in the modern world is interesting. So I think a lot of those movies are moving onto TV, and for my money, I'm more satisfied with it like that. I probably might be seen as a heretic to a lot of people who want to go to art house theaters and watch movies in that setting, but I don't know. Maybe it's that
if I can watch a movie on demand or on Netflix, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
As, a mother of a, young child.
Yeah. And it could be that I am, I own a video production business, and that's where I make most of my money. And it could be that I've thought about video. So one of the perks of having a business such as that is I have a gigantic television to watch things. And when I sit on my couch and look at my big screen, it's not too dissimilar than sitting kind of in the midsection of a art house movie theater and looking at the screen. In relation to my field of vision, the screen's about the same size.
Right.
So, and when I watch movies, I'm gonna probably not surprise Sonia with this, but when I watch movies at home, I want everybody to shut up and be quiet, don't talk,
Right.
and we're watching the movie.
That does surprise me.
We're serious. We're we're paying attention to this. We're putting our phones down and we're watching it. And you can have a really good movie going experience. I was just talking earlier in the episode about watching Dances with Wolves with my son, and that's a big, bold, sweeping Western. But on this screen, it looked great. It was in high definition. It just looked fantastic. It was like, wow, I'm watching this movie again, and holy cow, does that movie hold up? Don't worry, I'm only going to talk about Dances with Wolves 5 more times in the next 6 episodes. This is going to be like Star Trek in our run of summer episodes. It's like, I'm just talking about Star Trek all the time. It's all Dances with Wolves.
Now he's moved on to the oral history of Dances with Wolves.
That's right. And then it's going to be the oral history of Open Range, which has one of the greatest gunfights in Hollywood history. Sorry, I might have got distracted. So, yeah, that is my thought on kind of where movies are going. And I think I'm okay with it. I shouldn't say that, probably. I'm going to lose my cool kid critic card.
I think it just swings around. I think it ebbs and flows. And I think that right now we get a lot of animated movies and 3D superhero movies that are really big and loud to compete with television.
Right.
Just like we used to get, kind of those William Castle movies back in the day, like The Tingler and the House on Haunted Hill or whatever, with the skeletons that would go into the crowd, and
right.
CinemaScope and Smell-O-Vision.
Actually,
and all
that's
these
right.
things that they would do to like get you to come to the theater. And I think that's what we're seeing a little bit now, but I think it'll just go back. You know?
Maybe. Here's the thing that I'm thinking might be different, and you're definitely right. Back in the 50s, movies became spectacle, scopes, CinemaScope. I mean, big to counteract what television was giving people at home. A lot of the little Sidney Lumet dramas were going to the small screen, and on like GE Theater and all that kind of stuff. While the big Ben-Hurs and Lawrence of Arabia's and Bridge on the River Kwai's were filling up the movie theaters. But now I don't know. Like, I'm thinking, and I think we said this before, and Spotlight is kind of my go-to example with this. I don't know if you'd make Spotlight as a big screen movie anymore. I think you'd make it as like a 5-episode HBO show or Netflix show. It was just last
year. You make it sound like it came out forever ago.
Well, no, you're right. It is just last year, but I think we're at that level where if, so it came out last year, so the process of making it started 2 or 3 years before that. So the process of, thinking about it or might have taken a year or two, so the process of that movie, let's say, is 4 or 5 years old.
Right.
The world of movie making from 4 or 5 years ago to now is just, if you were thinking, I want to tell the story of the Boston Globe reporters that took apart the
Catholic
Church scandal, where am I going to take the story? Your first spot is Netflix. Second spot is Amazon. Third spot is maybe Hulu. Fourth spot is HBO. And then it's AMC, FX. And then when everyone said no to you, then you go to the broadcast networks. Oh, how the mighty have fallen, baby!
It would have made a really awesome TV series, that's for sure.
It would have. So that is our first segment of Asking Chris and Sonia questions.
And we're happy to do it again. So if you have questions, send them our way.
That's right. Send them our way. We'll save them all up, and then we will mispronounce your name on the next segment. That brings us to our favorite headlines of the week, and perhaps our least favorite headline that is theoretically conceivable. This week, as some of you may know, who've been paying some attention to television or the internet or newspapers or magazines or your phones or skywriting.
Or if you talk to someone.
Or if you talk to somebody or looked outside or breathe.
You just looked out your window.
Breathe the breath in the last. You will know that Donald J. Trump and Hillary Clinton faced off an election on Tuesday, November 8th. I'm still not clear of the outcome, but we are here to talk through our reactions and also to talk a little bit about one of the things that sparked this discussion is Dana Gould, one of the inspirations for this podcast, one of my favorite comedians and a writer in classic era Simpsons. He posted a thing on Facebook talking about people in bubbles, how we all get into our own informational bubbles, and how he thinks that the way people talk about politics in America is just not very productive, and he's going to start kind of breaking some of his old habits and trying to figure out ways to talk to people that he might not necessarily agree with. And that sparked kind of a thought in me, even though I pride myself on someone who tries to talk to every side of the issue and all that. This election in particular for me has gotten my hackles up and gotten me worrying about the state of our democracy and whatever in ways that I don't think I ever have before. But I know that my experience is very different from a lot of people's experience. And I think that's one of the things that we want to talk about today. Sonia Mansfield.
Yes.
Now that the white man has stopped talking, what do you have to say?
I've been struggling this week. I've been going through different stages of grief, I guess. I was really upset on Tuesday night. The next day, I was really depressed.
Yeah.
And then the day after that, I got very angry. I read Dana Gould's post, and I understand what he's saying too about like being in the bubble. Like,
right.
I am a married, straight, white lady who lives in San Francisco. I'm in the bubble. Like, I knew that, like, I know racism and sexism and homophobia, all these things are out there. I realize that. But I truly didn't realize that, like, it was as bad as it is. It makes me sound so naive. Like, it was a huge wake-up call, and I've been struggling with that. And I know that, like, not everyone who voted for Trump is, like, they're sexist or racist or homophobic or whatever. But I also have a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that those things were not deal breakers for them.
Yeah, that's true.
The part. That's the part I have a hard time with, because they're like, well, Hillary's more of the same, and I want something different, or we need some real change, or, whatever. But, like, the racism, the sexism, the homophobia, the fact that he's basically a serial sexual assaulter, like, these things weren't deal breakers for people. And that upsets me and confuses me.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been struggling with. And I really did try before the election not to fight with people on Facebook about politics, because I'm like, I'm not going to change anyone's mind on Facebook. Like, I'm not going to like that post. That'll show him, it's just not going to work. But now I'm really trying to understand.
Right.
So I am trying to, like, engage more, and, I have the things that I'm trying to do to, make it right, I guess.
Yeah. And, one of the things that was so great about what Dana Gould said is that the main thing he's doing is not going out and trying to persuade people. And, because you heard a lot
He
of...
just wants to understand.
He wants to listen. He wants to listen to the other side or listen to people that he doesn't agree with, listen to where they're coming from and kind of be respectful in the way he listens. Because you saw a lot of posts on Wednesday and Thursday. It's kind of like, well, now's the time to fight. Now's the time to, we got to man the ramparts and, march in the streets. And, you got all these people.
And by the way, I was super guilty of this.
Yeah, well, no,
I posted something where I was like, hey, today's the day where we all get to be sad and lick our wounds. And then tomorrow we got to get up and we got to go to work.
Yeah, and I'll say two things there. One, it might come off sounding like I'm being easy on Donald Trump, where I'm not. We definitely do have to watch. And I think that...
we should make it very clear, like...
Yeah.
Nobody here is a Trump supporter.
Yeah, well, two things. Yeah, one, nobody here is a Trump supporter. But two, we don't want to disrespect a lot of people who voted for him. Because while there was a alarmingly big contingent of his support that came from, there's a reason the Ku Klux Klan's official newspaper endorsed him. That doesn't mean that his entire, section of voters were all feeling that way. That is, and that's one of the things that I'm kind of coming to terms with, and I'm trying to figure out a way to communicate this to people, is the way that we talk about politics in this country is just really dumb. And, I'm saying the obvious here, really just reductive until it's just absurd. We'll take an example here. Donald Trump is saying, oh, I don't like the trade policies. I don't like NAFTA. I don't like TPP. I'm gonna rip all this up, and all the forces that have been pushing American jobs overseas, I'm gonna stop them, and I'm gonna take a different attitude towards the attitude that both Republicans and Democrats for the last 30 years have had towards the way we deal with global trade. So he says that, and then he says all the stuff about banning Muslims, and he says all the stuff about, horrible things about Mexicans, and he says all these truly, legitimately horrifying things. So if you're if you're a voter that doesn't think we're going in the right direction with trade, that doesn't see a lot of hope in Hillary Clinton and her, giving secret talks to bankers about, what she really thinks and has a different face for the public and all that, what are you supposed to do? Where are you supposed to go? And that's a horrible place for that voter to be in. And I think it is unfair to...
Yeah, but here's where it goes back to what I said before, though. Like I really care about trade or something. If that's really my big concern. Yeah. It's like, well, then I'm just going to let, millions of Muslims be deported, or, like that's not a deal breaker for you.
Well, I think that is part of the problem with the American electoral system is there's no, when it gets to this point, there are two choices. Where in other countries, there'd be a spectrum of 5 or 6 or 7 different candidates and different parties that you could vote for. But here, there's just 2. One of the things I saw that was very interesting today was a map of counties that had switched from Obama to Trump. These were counties that went from Democrat to Republican from 2012 to 2016. And they were almost all in the Rust Belt. They were in, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, all Ohio. And it was kind of striking that they were doing this. And I hear you.
That's just the thing I keep coming back to. It's the part I'm struggling with the most. It's the part I can't wrap my head around. And is that someone feels so strongly about something about some sort of policy about trade or whatever. And then, well, it's like, well, then I'm going to let the other stuff slide. And I'm like, well, I just can't wrap my head around that you would be like, well, okay, I guess I'm going to vote for the guy who assaults women and calls them pigs and wants to ban Muslims and deport like 11 million, Hispanic people. Like, it's just wrong to me. And
I hear you. And I think that's kind of where I'm coming from is, when the choices and the descriptions of certain voters or certain candidates or certain parties or whatever gets boiled down so much, it becomes very hard to wrap our heads around a lot of this stuff. Because a lot of these counties in those areas were just irradiated by the way that, Detroit has moved out all their, Detroit, think about the city of Detroit. It used to be, the third, fourth biggest city in the country, and it was talked about as the city of the future. And now it's legit Mad Max territory. And when you're in that, when you've been waiting 30 years for people to figure this out, and 20 years ago, the Clintons were talking about, well, all these, globalism is going to provide all these different kinds of jobs. Some jobs are going to get shipped over, but we're going to retrain you and you're going to have these new jobs. Well, that never really happened.
Right.
So what are these people going to do that they're still living in these towns? They're still needing jobs. They're still needing something to happen. And they're only the only person raising that flag with any passion is also psychopathic megalomaniac.
Yeah, sexist, homophobic bigot.
Exactly, and that's the thing. And for a lot of, so I think part of me is where I'm coming from, or where I'm kind of settling, is I have a lot of compassion towards that segment. I won't even call them the Republican Party because a lot of them were just independents or whatever.
Right.
But none of that compassion, none of that understanding, none of that break giving, goes to Trump. He's got the power of the president. We can spin down into a million different worst case scenarios when it comes to him having the power of the presidency. But when it comes to him, he doesn't get any breaks. He's got a the first tripwire of him not paying attention to this law or not doing things the way a president should be doing them and starting to overstep his bounds. And,
right.
That's when, we dust off the impeachment proceedings that we had with Nixon, and we need to pay attention to it. The fact that a lot of people cried wolf a lot when it came to McCain or Bush or Romney about, right. Oh, he's fascist. Oh, he's a Hitler. Oh, he's this and that. It's just like when a real fascist comes along and, everybody from Seth MacFarlane to Bill Maher to you and I have talked about this. We
cried wolf too many times.
When you cry wolf a bunch and the wolf comes, what are you going to do?
Right.
So, yeah, we'll see. I do think, and I've fallen into this pattern a little bit, is I don't talk about politics a lot. I don't talk about it on Facebook. I don't talk about,
You know what? I have to say, I used to be someone who didn't really talk about politics because I guess, I don't know if I don't think I really thought it was like a private thing. It was just like, I didn't think Facebook was the outlet for that, I guess. So I didn't really do that.
You're still correct about that.
On Facebook. And, we do talk about it in my family. We really don't agree.
Right.
But this election really brought out the worst in everyone, and including myself.
Right.
And made me frustrated and angry and not really willing to listen to people because immediately I was just like, I can't believe you would even consider voting for this person.
Right.
And, and now this is something that like I have to deal with, and like I'm going to have Thanksgiving with my family, and I'm like, are we going to talk about the election? Am I going to run out of the room in tears? Like, is it going to turn into a thing? Like, this is something we're all having to deal with on both sides because no one's listening.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's the thing is what I would say is, what we need to do we need to talk about politics, but the first thing we need to do, and this is why I think Dana Gould's piece struck me so much, and we'll have a link in the show notes, is we need to listen more. That's the main thing we need to do. You know, because from my perspective, there's a list of 15 things that need to get done to make the country better. You know, 6.5 of them reside in the Democratic Party and their quote-unquote Democratic issues. 6.5 of them reside in the Republican Party and their quote-unquote Republican issues. So kind of none of them ever want to work together to get done. And it's just people end up talking past each other. And it's just, we're in this place where we got to figure out how to talk to each other because, you know, we have come to a place where the frustration is so big, the conversation about politics is so unproductive that we really have elected somebody that has a lot of authoritarian aspects that I think a lot of us are going to be unhappy to see. My main number one thing on Wednesday was, boy, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. You know, the best case scenario became maybe he was lying the whole time.
Right? That is something I actually threw around there where I was like, well, you know, he lies about so many things. Maybe he's not really going to do those things.
Yeah.
I can, you know, I would like to share with listeners, like, I know like a lot of people, you know, whether you voted for Trump or Clinton or Gary Johnson or Jill Stein or whatever.
If you voted for Jill Stein, I got nothing for you.
Same. But
just kidding.
I say, like, as someone who's been kind of just, like I said, really struggling this week of, you know, feeling frustrated and depressed and angry, you know, what I do to make myself feel better. And we talked about this before a little bit in one of our earlier podcasts where we talked about like comfort movies and what we do after that nightclub shooting in Orlando. And I tend to give money to organizations that fight for the things that I think are right. Right. And that tends to make me feel better because I can't always donate my time. Right. Because, you know, I work and I have kids. I have a kid. You know, I have things to do. But I can put my money where my mouth is. And that's what I do. You know, I'll sign whatever petition. I'll donate the money to the organizations that fight for what's right.
To the thing and the place and the thing that does that stuff.
Yeah. Because and it makes me feel a little better. I mean, I'm not saving the world, but some other people are, and I'll give them some dough. Yeah. So, I would say I'm kind of there with you. I would say what we should be doing, if we can pull it off, is listening. What we need to do is listen to each other, and things will work out. We'll get this stuff figured out. It might be a rough couple of years. See, here's the part where everybody says, "Oh my God," and you heard this a lot in the Obama administration, and you heard it a lot in the Bush administration. "Oh my God, he's the worst president ever." This is where every single president since Lincoln thanks God for James Buchanan. Because he was the president that sat there as all the forces pushed the country towards civil war, and he did jack squat. Right.
So until the army starts rolling in the lower 48, whoever is president is not the worst president of all time.
Well,
tell James Buchanan. That's right. It could happen. We'll see. That's good. We will cross that bridge when it comes to it. Right now, we will all just pray that Donald J. Trump is the biggest liar in recorded history. And he's really not going to do all the stuff he said he's going to do.
I hope so.
And with that,
And on that happy note.
And on that happy note, we will see you in the future hellscape, where roving bands of misfit children and Muppets
Fight for gasoline.
Fight for gasoline
And water.
And water and DVD players so we can watch La La Land and the movies that we talked about in our winter movie preview as we huddle inside.
Oh, I hope
away from the fallout.
I hope society can hold it together until Rogue One. That's all I'm asking.
All right, actually, you know what?
Come on, everyone, hold it together till Rogue One.
No, you know what? I would like to give a tiny bit of advice to someone in the Trump administration right now. Here's what you do. Now, we know that you love Trump. We know he's your guy. We know that you think he needs to do things to make the country great again. But if you see that he is starting to go down the road to real, true tyranny, if you have your heart broken like a lot of Nixon, like John Dean in the Nixon administration, signed up, he wanted to be a lawyer for the president, then he found out the president was a corrupt monster, and his administration was doing a lot of illegal things, so with a broken heart, he went to Congress and testified. And if you see Donald J. Trump doing some truly crazy stuff and your heart gets broken, what I want you to do is talk Trump into canceling Star Wars movies.
Oh!
Because the hue and cry and freak out from sea to signing sea will blast him from office quicker than anything. Once
It'll be the sound of a million nerds calling out.
Not just nerds. There's gonna, Paul Ryan will be front and center if I believe his Star Wars fandom, getting Trump out of there. So this is something that binds us together, Republicans and Democrats, a love for George Lucas's Galaxy Far, Far Away. So that's what you do. That is the 2-meter shaft that you're gonna have to hit to blow this administration up. If you see...
Well, that's not much bigger than a womp rat.
That's right. And, you've shot a lot of rats, I'm sure, and when you were working for Mr. Trump in New York City. So if you see him veering towards tyranny, you unnamed Trump loyalist in the White House right now, that's what you do. Bend his ear, say whatever you need to say to him. Seems like he can... pretty much agrees.
I think
with
they
the
make
last
fun
person
of you in the new Star Wars movies.
That's
you should
right.
Cancel them.
That's right. That's what
they
you
make
do.
fun of your tiny hands.
They make fun of your tiny hands in Star Wars Episode 8. Mr. President, we have got to shut these Star Wars movies down. Please give me the authority to call Disney and stop Star Wars. He'll give you the authority. You call Disney. There'll be a super freak out. And then... the country, and then, the regular forces of rationality will blast him from office. And then, we can all agree, I think.
And that's how Star Wars saves the world.
That's how, Star Wars saves the world. And while we're not necessarily fans of Mike Pence, I think we can all agree, Republicans and Democrats, that 3 years of Mike Pence is preferable to 4 years of Trump. Right, Sonia?
Sigh.
No, come on. You got to agree with that. So you heard it here. Sonia likes Trump better than Mike Pence.
No.
That's what she was saying with her silence.
That's not what I was saying. I don't like either of them. But at least Mike Pence is predictable, I guess.
Exactly. See? Do you think somebody could talk Mike Pence into canceling Star Wars? No. So come on. There's your answer, Sonia. Come on. Let's meet our new Republican overlords halfway. And give them the benefit of the doubt that
welcome our new Republican overlords.
They're not all Star Wars destroying monsters. Just the one at the top. Anyway, that is all in good humor. Please don't send us to the re-education camps just yet. If you voted for Trump and are listening to this podcast, that shows that you have the kind of discernment that we appreciate, and we thank you for listening.
Well, Smith does.
That's right. But that's because, as I believe I've demonstrated in earlier podcasts, I am, in fact, more tolerant than Sonia Mansfield.
Yes, I'm such a hater. And on that note... I'll just say goodbye.
Bye! The Dorking Out Show is on Twitter at Dorking Out Show, where you can find Chris at Jet Jurgens and Sonia at The Sonia Show. You can read about Sonia's random adventures at thesoniashow.com and track the slow and creeping progress of Chris's novel and his other hijinks at jetjurgens.com. You can find out more about The Dorking Out Show at dorkingoutshow.com. While you're over there, you can support us by giving us a review on iTunes. We have a handy-dandy iTunes link to whisk you right back to 2007, where you can leave your review and 5-star rating in iTunes. We'd do it for your podcast. Want to dork out even more? Well, you can sign up for our newsletter, where you'll get all the headlines we use as fuel for the show. That's it for this week. Thanks for listening.